most leaders in this industry are men. The protocols for men by men are great for men, but women are not small men.
Thank you for joining, Kayla Barnes. So are you the woman equivalent of Brian Johnson?
4 years ago, we opened up this longevity clinic. I had access to unlimited amount of labs.
Is your diet mainly vegetarian or not at all? You eat everything?
You know, the press earlier this year asked me how long I wanted to live. I said 150. I think there was some research actually that said men that are married live longer, women that are married don't. Did you see this one?
No,
I don't agree.
I don't want to see it. Thank you for joining, Kayla Barnes. So the biohacker in the feminine way, I would say. We've been chasing each other for years, and we were just talking about that before. Like, it's been 5 years that we've been talking about being on a show together and having an interview. We finally made it. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here for an interview and a podcast at the same time. Featured in Biohacker's magazine, of course.
I know, it's been such a long time coming. You and I see each other, I mean, at least a few times a year. We could have made it happen before, but we're too busy biohacking and spending time with people.
That's the thing. And now you're too busy trying to have a kid.
Yeah, soon. We're going to start trying next year. So I'm excited.
So you are going to try having next year. Is it programmed? Because remember when we saw each other last time at the Devas conference, you told me, oh, I choose my husband on some criteria. Go on it. Explain our public this thing, please.
Yeah. Well, we saw each other at Eudaimonia too.
Yes,
recently.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. It was your birthday.
Yeah, it was my birthday. I know, I just turned 34. So yeah, I mean, my husband and I had a kind of interesting courting process. We both had really important, I think, like hallmarks. So for me, health was a big one. And people find this very unconventional, but, before our first date, I actually asked him for his labs. And, it was a pleasant surprise because he had them quite organized, not as comprehensive as, I would have done, but he sent over his labs. I, own a longevity medicine clinic. So I immediately sent him, he sent me some basic stuff like an annual physical that he had just had done with some basic lab markers. And I sent him back a genetics test, a gut microbiome test, a total toxic burden test, a much more comprehensive lab panel with about 150 biomarkers on it. We call it our longevity lab panel. And I also sent him an air doctor at the time. So I realized he didn't have a big enough one. So that was the beginning of our dating process. He was so excited. I knew it was going to take someone really special and very into this world to be compatible with me, right? I mean, we've been talking about an interview for 5 years. I mean, I've been in this space for quite a long time. And this is not only my professional life, owning, a medical clinic, but also my personal life. It's my day to day. I mean, just my routines take up probably 4 or 5 hours of my day, and things like sleep optimization, like your partner has to be on the same schedule as you, or else it's become like increasingly difficult to maintain adherence to those routines. So he did all the labs. They came back really good. Truthfully, he was in a really good spot. Also I checked out his Instagram. He was already cold plunging. He was already working out heavy. He was already doing all the things. We had our first date. He came and visited me at my clinic, and we had our first date in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. So
that's quite unique. It's not a restaurant, it's an hyperbaric chamber.
I was like, let's just put him all the way in, and he's either going to run away or he's going to love it. One of the two. Because we did, a multi-person hyperbaric chamber. And then I put him in the ozone sauna, it looks insane if you've never seen this, right? It's like a chamber, the Hocket. So it's like a pod that all of these therapies are happening simultaneously. It's super hot. So put him in that. Then we went on a long walk, had an organic dinner, and he was just all in, which which I love. I think who you choose as a partner, or at least if you're already with a partner, getting them on board is so incredibly important to the outcome. I think a lot of biohackers that we know are quite popular, it can be a very isolating life, right? You
It
know,
is. It
mhm.
is. Yeah.
We have people saying don't sleep in the same bed as your partner
Hmm.
because it could disrupt your sleep.
Right.
But you also have to consider the benefits, right, of that close connection. So it's a really delicate balance, and I think that the fact that my husband is all in on this with me, I mean, it's just such a blessing. We do hyperbarics together. We do IV therapy. You know, I'll let him know, hey, we have a blood draw tomorrow, and he'll sit down at this very table that I'm at, and we'll have a nurse come over, and he'll give 20 vials of blood, no questions asked. We've determined that I'm the chief health officer in the marriage. So I determine the protocols, the supplements, take care of the food, and it all tastes good. It's all enjoyable to him. So he really is just enjoying the ride, I think. And
That's very cool. Yeah.
and
I
now
hope
I
so.
have the responsibility because the press earlier this year asked me how long I wanted to live. I said 150, but I said
Okay.
only 150 with my husband, right? I mean, I think we can live longer than that, but I like to have a specific number. I think, and now I have to be responsible for both of us, right? So I have to manage both of our health, both of our labs. We're doing, these in
So,
depth labs.
okay, you are triggering a lot of question in my head now.
Yeah, tell
And
me.
well, the first question is, what about love? And the second question is, um, do you need to control everything like that, like you do in your couple?
Mhm.
And if yes, which I assume it is, explain us why.
Great questions. Love, definitely. I mean, without love, if we think about all of the pieces that you need, right, for let's say a healthy biohacking relationship, we'll do like niche, right? They need to have interest in, of course, the topic matter,
Hmm.
which he does. But if I didn't love him, I mean, I'm obsessed with my husband. He's just the best ever. We met in May, we got engaged in August, and we got married in September all of last year.
Oh,
I
so,
mean, it was immediate. I called my mom the first day I met him in person, and I said, like, we're going to get married. I just knew. But no, I mean, our relationship is so loving. And I've always said since being married that getting married was the best biohack I've ever done. I've lived this life
I like that.
that was incredibly disciplined. I've been waking up at 5 in the morning or earlier, doing my red light therapy, my cold shower, my hyperbaric chamber, my intense workout, my, EBOO, my plasmapheresis, my peptides. I've been doing this for a very long time,
Yeah,
and,
over a
like,
decade. Yeah.
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 And I mean, same thing with like Dave Asprey. He's been doing all this stuff for so
Hmm.
long. I mean, Dave's been doing it longer than me, but I've been doing it for a long time. But there was a massive component that I was missing. And as a woman, that was feeling safe, that was feeling loved. And what that did to my nervous system was a game changer, like absolute game changer. Having this sense of security, knowing that someone it has your best interest at mind and that someone's on your team is incredibly valuable because you and I both know, you can do all the things, right? You can check all the boxes. But if your nervous system is dysregulated and if you're stressed because you're
Yeah.
not feeling that human connection in those relationships,
Yeah.
the studies say that loneliness is as dangerous as smoking to our health.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
So you,
Oxidative stress created by that. Yes. Yeah.
mhm.
Inflammation.
So you have to have that. It's so
Hmm.
important. And I think when I first started out, I was much more isolated than I am now. I think that's been one of my biggest shifts because I just felt like I was also building businesses. I've been an entrepreneur my entire
Yeah.
adult life.
Successful
So
entrepreneur. Yeah.
I said, how do I have time for friendship? So I would always let that go first. That would be the first thing to go because I didn't want to give up my workout. I wasn't going to give up all of my therapies. But I've come to a point now where, number one, I've designed my life differently. So we all have the power to design our life. And a lot of people look at my routine and they think it's absolutely insane and that
Hmm.
no one would have time for that. But I'll tell you, I didn't come from money. I worked really hard for everything I had, but I had the ultimate goal of the life I wanted in my mind the entire time, and I worked towards that. So I built that life and now I can incorporate all the health optimization. And then I have this incredible partnership, relationship, marriage that is adding so much joy and, decreased stress, which is
Hmm.
also incredible for my health.
Very interesting. Um,
Well, you asked
Thinking
about
of
the
that, yeah,
control too. Do
yeah,
you want me to answer that part?
I would absolutely go on the control part because that's a very important one. You said like you control when you tell him when you have blood work, when you have this and that. So um, the picture the- what you've pictured of your husband could be someone that is behind you and not on your side. So that's why I asked
Mhm.
you that question.
Yeah. Well, I want to make it very clear that my husband is the leader of our house.
Okay.
He has decided that I'm best suited for this role. And obviously we agree upon that. So for him, he's so busy, he's running multiple companies. He loves
Oh.
health. So for him, it's just easier, right? If this
Mhm.
is what my work is and this is what my expertise is, it makes sense for me to handle it. So therefore he doesn't even have to think about it. So it's a real blessing to him. But he loves the fact that he doesn't have to think about what is he going to eat. He doesn't have to make his own meals. He doesn't have to prepare his own supplements. I mean, hey, if someone was doing that for me, it would also be the life,
Yes,
right? I mean,
absolutely.
you just wake up, your peptides are out, your supplements are packed, your dinner
Yeah.
is made every night before 5:30 p.m. He used to go to bed much later, but because I've helped, him develop this routine, now we both go to bed at 8:30. He used to be eating at like 10 p.m. It's actually an amazing story that I don't share often, but when I first met Warren, he was on a very small dose of testosterone. So he's going to be
Okay.
36 in about a week or two, like the lowest dose possible. I can't recall the exact amount he was on, but I asked him to get off of it because we want to have children, and we know that testosterone therapy can impede that. He did it right away. His testosterone when I met him was about 760 ish, and that was on a very tiny dose of tea. When I asked him to get off, of course, it dropped down initially, but I put him through a detox protocol. I put him through a gut optimization protocol, helped him tweak his cold therapy regimens and some of the sauna therapies, and now it's 916 naturally.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
mean, as a man, I mean, that's incredible,
Yeah,
right?
that,
So
that is incredible. Yes.
if your
Wow.
wife can just set you up with the plan and you get
Yeah.
great results and you feel amazing, I think, yeah, it's such a blessing to him. But I mean, the reality is, yes, I do need to control everything because I'm the one looking at the data, and we do labs so frequently because I can see the smallest changes, right? So
Hmm.
I'm doing
Hmm.
these thousands of labs every quarter. So if we start to go in the wrong direction, let's say, our cardiovascular health starts to trend in the wrong direction, or like when we moved into this house, for example, at first I didn't have a whole home water filtration system. I just had shower water filters and then reverse osmosis countertop, right?
Okay.
I saw in our next total toxic burden that the contaminants from the shower water were minimally, but still increasing total toxic burden. So, guess what? Then, as the chief health officer of our house and lead biohacker, I say, okay, well, we're obviously immediately getting whole home water filtration again because we've had that before and we've seen it works. So, I love data. I love the ability to
Yeah, I
make,
can bet. But
yeah,
isn't that making you obsessive compulsive on data? Because you
it
love
could be.
interpreting, yeah, and maybe paranoiac a bit on what is happening around you. Are you scared about your environment?
Um, I'm not going to say I don't get concerned when I travel. My environment now, you see there's no rugs. That's a non
Hmm.
toxic couch. My
Yeah.
bed is organic. Everything has been made. The coffee maker is glass, all the things, right? You see there's like orange lighting back there. So when sun sets, we only have natural light from skylights. So when I leave the house, it's on my mind, the toxins, the what they're washing the clothes in, the
Right.
shower water filters. But I also know that I do all of this to be resilient also. It's
Hmm.
not going to derail me if I, spend one night at a speaking engagement and I'm in a hotel without, the right air filtration. You
Yeah.
can call though and ask them to make modifications, tell them that you have allergies. There's always things you can do. But to be honest, I'm so excited about the ability to get to do this. It doesn't stress me out the way
Okay.
that people might think it does. I am so happy and excited and feel so blessed to live this life. I mean, I have a hyperbaric chamber in my house. Like, that is so cool to me. I mean, what could be better? So I take the data in and I compute it in the most unbiased way. It's okay, here's the data. And I also have a medical team. So my clinic's team helps me to interpret all this. And the thing is in my heart, I know none of this is actually bad. It's just small
Hmm.
tweaks.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and the same thing, a lot of people, when I first started doing a lot of imaging, people would say, "Aren't you scared to find something?" And I
Oh,
would say,
of course. Yeah,
absolutely not.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
the best defense is if I find it early, right? So
yeah.
I want to know like the day something happens,
Hmm.
ideally, and if
Yeah.
not, within a few weeks of that time, because you can take such significant measures to help decrease that. The Western medicine system is so funny. It's like, you go to your doctors, you don't have type 2 diabetes. You go to your doctors again, you don't have type 2 diabetes. Oh, next time, all of a sudden, you have type 2 diabetes. It's like,
Too late.
no, no, no,
Yeah,
no. We knew years ago, based on your
yeah.
labs, that you were going down that road.
Correct.
So how
Yeah,
cool is it to be able to get your own data
yeah.
and then make changes so that you don't get to that place?
Yeah, I love it. It's fascinating, but many people will ask you. First, I'm going to ask you another question, but many people will ask you and question your life, saying like, "But you know what? You're spending 80% of your time prolonging your life for 20% or 30%. Does that make any sense?" And the second is, when do you live? Because some people have the perception that living is not what you're doing, is maybe sitting on the couch or something like that. Different stories, we all know these stories. But my main question, Kayla, is how did it start it?
Yeah. It's been a
Hmm.
slow build. It didn't
Okay.
happen. It didn't happen overnight. I started studying. First of all, I didn't come from a healthy family whatsoever.
Hmm.
I grew up on the standard American diet. I was eating Pop Tarts, Reese Puffs. I mean, I still am just like, Mom, how could you do this to me? But she didn't know. So convenience was great back then. So I, had minimal issues. Just I knew I could feel better. I started studying nutrition in college and just started making minimal changes. I was like, okay, upgrade my food. And I felt so much better. Alongside that same time, when I was 17, 18 years old, I started my first company.
Hmm.
And there was something that was inside of me that knew that the life that I had when I was younger, not only from the food and the health standpoint, but from the emotional kind of turbulence that I experienced in my home, I knew that I wanted so much more for my life. And when I thought through how can I get that, I thought about my own performance, my own optimization. So
Okay.
started changing my diet, started, really honing in on some of these more advanced therapies, just obsessively researching how can I optimize my body and my brain. And when I say my brain too, so I later then trained under Dr. Daniel Amen's program for like
Yeah.
brain health
You're
practitioner.
certified. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that changed the way I thought, and I was really doing all of this to help myself, right? I was like, "I need to become like a superwoman," because to go from here I mean, I grew up on food stamps, like, at times
Yeah.
I had free lunch cards, so to go from here to over here where I'm sitting in Los Angeles with a, medical grade hard shell hyperbaric chamber, that was gonna require exceptional performance, right? I couldn't
Absolutely.
halfway do this.
Yeah.
So, I started to think through and experiment on myself and also find leaders, in the space. I mean, I came across Mark Hyman like way back when, Dave
Great
Asprey way
doctor.
back
Yeah.
when, and
Yeah.
started just educating myself.
Hmm.
I love learning too. I'm constantly in some sort of program, coursework, integrative medicine, IFM, stuff like that, because I love learning and I love seeing different approaches to healing. But yeah, it's been a slow build over the last, definitely over 10 years, probably closer
Okay.
to 15.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to start this stuff very young. I mean, I was really 18 when I started changing my diet. Then it layered on with all organic foods, then more exercise, then sauna therapy. 4 years ago, we opened up this longevity clinic, and that really expedited things because I had access to unlimited amount of labs.
Right.
I had access to, we have a hyperbaric chamber, a multi-person hyperbaric chamber. We have an ozone sauna. We do EBOO. We do NED. We do methylene blue IVs. We've done like cerebral lysine. We do peptides. We do precision medicine. We do cold therapy, red light therapy bed, nano, like all the things that I have now, PEMF, we also have at the clinic. So we kind of built a business around the passion
Yeah.
that was there, but it was a slow build. And I don't want people, I'm sure people can look at routines like even yours or mine and think, wow, how this is crazy. It's way
Yeah.
too much. So
Yeah.
you start with the small things. And then I think of all these other therapies as either rejuvenation therapies, because the first step is to slow the process of decline,
Correct. Yeah.
slow the deterioration. And that's where we're at as a society right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
How
Hmm.
much can we slow the deterioration? How much can we optimize health span? Because we both believe, right, that in the next 10 to 20, 30 years, AI and true rejuvenation therapies are going to come on the market.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's how you get to the 150, the 180, the 200,
Right.
whatever. You
Yeah.
have to live long enough, healthy enough to get to the spot that when I was speaking at a conference in Gestad about new therapies that are being tested, right? So these aren't even on the market, but they're now finding the ability to actually take new youthful mitochondria and incorporate them into older, more damaged
I've
mitochondria
seen
through an
that.
IV drip. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the type of stuff that's coming down the pipeline. We just have to stay healthy enough and young enough for long enough to reach that.
Yeah.
They call
Like
it the
Aubrey. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, Aubrey
longevity
Aubrey.
escape
Yeah, yeah,
velocity.
exactly. Yeah,
So,
it's interesting to see where we're going because yes, you are right. We are designed to live up to 125, 130, and the only way we can optimize that is the way that you said. Some people think that it's too extreme. My question to you is. You open that longevity clinic and you have clients and you do your business and you live in Los Angeles in a very nice area. You have all these tools. Most people look at the biohackers as some sort of a cultish movement because they always come back to us with a backslash and they say, well, biohacking is just for rich people. What
mm.
do you think about that?
Well, unfortunately, let's call it advanced biohacking. It is. It is a very expensive game. We spend, upwards of six figures a year, and that's with
Hmm.
having a clinic, on these things. I mean, for me, I'm excited to see what happens with some policy change, hopefully, in the coming years. I think we're at a better position now than we ever have been. People are more being more loud about it. We have people like Casey Means and her brother Callie Means, and they're speaking out. They're going to Washington. We, have whether or not your political views. I don't know where yours fall, but I interviewed RFK a year and a half ago, and I've
Hmm.
never at that time he was a presidential candidate. I've never heard a candidate talk about mitochondria ever. You
True,
know,
huh?
so
Yeah.
I think, if anyone can change that, because that's the only, we can change the price and that issue by two ways. Either an incredible demand, which we are creating,
Hmm. Hmm.
or top down policy change.
Yeah.
Like we
Or
don't have to
both.
find,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
both, right? Like
No, yeah.
right now, our current medical system is not incentivized whatsoever to make people healthy. They
No.
get paid more money if they have more prescriptions, they have more office visits. So we need to change that. But for the time being, I think you have to take control of your health right now. I mean, you can't wait for anyone else because if you really think about it, like imagine someone said, here is a car for you. You are going to have this car for the rest of your life. How would you take care of that car?
Mm. Yeah.
Oh,
You need maintenance. Yeah.
constant
Preventive.
maintenance.
Yeah.
You're going to be so careful with where you drive it and how you
Right.
drive it. You're going to be careful of the gasoline that you put in it
Yeah.
because you only have one. But what's so odd is that we don't think of our bodies like that. It is the most valuable thing that we have. We only get one. So for me, also some people just simply can't afford it. And we can talk about strategies for them. But then there's also people that spend money on alcohol,
Hmm.
multiple
Hmm.
times a
Hmm.
week,
Yeah.
going out to high-end dinners or going to a nightclub. I don't have a budget for any of that.
Yeah.
All of my disposable income goes to my food and, health optimization because I have one body. And when
Hmm.
you wake up in the morning, it's so sad because I believe that most, Americans and people in the world, they don't even know what it feels like to feel good.
Yeah, well, you know what? That falls down back to education, because we think that we are consumable the same way that we see the things around us that are consumable. So for many people, their body is a consumable good that is not supposed to last, and is just like it's like he comes and go. We need to change. I agree. We need to change from the government. We need to change from the mass, but we need to change the education system and change the way that we educate our doctors as well.
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
My friend that I mentioned, Dr. Casey Means, she is a Stanford trained physician surgeon, and you can listen to her podcast. She just did one with Joe Rogan not too long ago.
Nice. Yeah.
And she says openly, and we all know doctors go into it, I think, for the right reasons. They want to heal people, but the system that actually educates them isn't teaching curative medicine. There's,
Right.
I think over 100 different subspecialties of medicine. It's an
Hmm.
extremely disconnected approach. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't tell me that common sense can't tell you that the brain is connected to the gut. It's not two separate things that require, all of these multiple specialties. It's like, she says directly that in all of her training, I think 4 years undergrad, 4 years medical school, 4 years surgical training, no one ever taught her about nutrition. No one ever taught her that microplastics were
Right.
in our environments, and 80,000 toxins are in our food system and our personal care products. No one ever talked about that. So I agree. I don't know how we rebuild that system because it seems incredibly deep, but I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
that would change. And a lot of doctors that leave traditional medicine, as you know, they go on and they do something like A4M or IFM or integrative medicine, schooling, and then they get it. And then they're just like changing the world
True.
because they're thinking like, how can I cure this person? How can I, number one, identify what's plaguing them? And then how can I optimize it? And that's the type of medicine that we practice at my clinic, but that's the type of medicine that should be practiced everywhere.
I agree. I agree. I agree. And hopefully, it's going to happen soon. It's probably not going to happen in our generation, to be honest. But if we live after 150, we'll see that definitely. For today, we have to cope with what it is. And I think we have to spread the vibes and the words about life is not that complicated.
Mm.
And even if you do all this biohacking, what you do is like I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I think, I love the time that we live in because we have to take what our ancestors did, and nature is medicine. It's not only
Mhm.
proven out in the literature,
Right.
but also you feel it.
Mhm.
People that live in areas with no sun experience higher levels of seasonal depression, right? We know that the sun makes you feel good. So do more things that make you feel incredible. So I get morning sun every day. I literally live in a warm climate because the sun is so powerful, right? I
Yeah.
get so much great sun exposure. I think of our bodies as like a battery. And all the negative things that we're doing, it's like the toxins in the food and the air and the water and the sedentary and, the poor food, those are all draining the battery. How can you
Mhm.
increase the battery? Things like grounding. I mean, I have this, $45,000 PEMF machine behind me. That's great, but you can do grounding for free, making
Right.
contact with the earth, and you get so many of the same benefits. I think it's just about taking action. We know that those small and like low cost or sometimes even free practices, I mean, a cold shower is free. Going to bed early is free. Sleeping in a dark environment or having an eye mask is
Free.
very low cost, sometimes free.
Yeah.
There are so many things that we can do, eliminating ultra processed foods and choosing single ingredient foods that can be low cost if you really think through how to shop and where to shop. Um, you know, Water, it can be a couple $100 for a countertop water
Filter.
filtration
Yeah. Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
And a lot of these companies too are now offering like pay as you go kind of situation, right? So you can pay month to month, but a whole home or sorry, countertop water filtration RO system is a couple $100. So it'll pay
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
itself over time.
Yeah.
Um, but so many things are free. Moving is free. Sun is free.
And if you
Exercise
don't,
is free.
yeah. And Kayla, don't you agree? Like many people look at biohacking and they say, "Oh, that's so overwhelming. So many things to do, so many techniques, so many technologies, so many modalities." But they forgot that part. Like start by those things, like the simple thing, like you
Yeah.
said. Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. Everyone's like, what supplement should I take or what IV
yeah,
should I do? I'm like, okay, have you mastered these basics? How you eat, how you sleep, how you move, the air you're breathing, the water you're drinking, and managing your stress and social relationships. If you haven't optimized those, you don't need to be thinking about a $700 IV therapy. You know what I
love it.
mean? Exercise can promote a lot of the same benefits as different supplements, right?
Right.
There are ways to do it. There's food first approaches. Let's say, we know that urolithin A is great for mitochondrial function. Well, you can also eat a pomegranate.
That's true. Yeah.
So if you find, I think, a lot of times if there's a will, there's a way, and you can always make improvements. It doesn't mean that you're going to be doing stem cells and peptides and plasma exchange, all of that stuff. But there's a lot of things that you can do on a daily basis that will make immense, benefit to your health.
Benefit. Yeah. Finishing this free full conversation with you, it's so interesting. Let's jump on what you shared with me when we saw each other at Devaspriya. It was that time when I asked you, "Are you the equivalent, the woman of equivalent of Brian Johnson?" And your answer was,
I mean, the press says yes. That was one of the first articles, I think.
yeah,
And I love what Brian's doing. I
yeah,
interviewed Brian. I got to actually look up the date. It was a couple years ago. I believe it was before the Bloomberg article. It was
oh
before all
yeah,
the press stuff. And I saw his blog, and I'm like, this is so crazy. This is the first person I've really seen that lives like me, right? My friends back then, they would make fun of me like, "Oh, you live in a bubble, you're not doing
yeah,
anything, this
hmm,
is crazy." And now it's becoming so much more popular and I've kind of made a brand out of that crazy, I guess you could say.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, the press says yes. I mean, I've been doing this for a real long time, but I
longer than
love
him, yeah,
yeah, yeah, but I love what he did was that he went from completely average kind of lifestyle, like,
yeah,
and then changed everything, whereas mine has been a bit more of like a slow grow. But
right,
I think it's really important to have representation for both sexes because as you know, most of the leaders, not all, but most leaders in this industry are men,
correct,
mostly, 47 to 50 something year old men. And the protocols for men by men are great for men, but women are not small men. And I
yeah,
think it's important. And I think the time is now to have women that are showing their labs, showing like even the labs that you look at from a man and a woman, you're going to look at them differently. You want to look at different things potentially. Our hormones are so much more complicated.
yeah,
Then we have, I'm in the menstruation phase of my life. Then there's perimenopause and there's menopause and postmenopause. And all of those require something different.
hmm,
Not to mention that, like, I plan my workouts, my nutrition, my recovery, my biohacking around my cycle because that's how women should be doing it. We can't, men, you guys, have this 24-hour cycle. So
yeah,
you can do a freezing cold plunge every day. When
yeah,
I
but
did
not,
that,
yeah,
when I first got started, it was way too much. I was fasting too much caloric restriction. I watched my thyroid decrease. I watched my hormones begin to become imbalanced because I was doing way too much. Women require a different protocol. And I
yeah,
think it's exciting to have, two people kind of simultaneously seeing what works
yeah,
for men, what works for women, and even the reasons why we might take something or not take something, like rapamycin, for example. Some research just came out, men might take rapamycin only for longevity benefits, but research just came out that it's so new, it hasn't even been peer reviewed yet, but that rapamycin can delay ovarian aging by, up to 5 years. So that might be a reason I do one of these therapies, whereas it might be a different reason for a man. So I think it's
Yeah.
important to have both
Yeah.
representations there.
I do agree on that 100%. And it's difficult for a man to identify to a woman and for a woman to identify to a man in terms of protocols and stuff like that. So it's required. And I'm glad that you are there doing this job. It is a must. We need that. Now, why women live longer than men? With all the complexity of this hormonal imbalance and changing cycle and everything, they're still more resilient than men, and in average 5 to 6 years.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about what a woman is built to do, right? From a
Mm,
traditional sense,
right.
our bodies, I mean, just our immune system alone, right? I was having a conversation with Dr. Jeffrey Bland, who, is one of the pioneers in
Yeah.
functional medicine. And I asked him, why are women getting autoimmune conditions at such a more significant rate than men, like massively more significant? And he said, a woman's body has to be able to house a male inside of her in some cases. It is so far from your own identity genetics that your immune system has to be so much more sensitive, more
That's
attuned, more
yeah.
heightened because of this ability to create life. I think that is one big
Hmm.
factor. I mean, we know cardiovascular disease really takes out a
Yeah.
lot of men.
Right.
um and I think, but the problem is even though women are living longer, they're also living longer with chronic disease.
True.
So that is a problem. I mean, for
Yeah.
me, the main thing is how can we help women to feel their absolute best right now and live longer and healthier lifespan in the hopes that we all make it to this longevity escape velocity where we can start rejuvenating. But it's so important because women are just being plagued with these conditions, and there's so much that goes into it. Also, even with menopause and ovarian aging, I have a podcast too, and I
Hmm.
interviewed
Very
Dr.
nice one. Yeah.
Dr. Jennifer Garrison, and one of her massive focuses right now is on ovarian aging. Do you realize that we know almost nothing about why
Yeah.
the ovaries even
Yeah.
age at
Yeah.
2.5 times the speed?
Yeah. Yeah.
The literature, I mean, as you know, women were only required to even be in studies in the early 90s. So we have a lot of ground to make up because that's why this self experimentation I think is so important, because we don't have a lot of the literature to say, okay, this is exactly the temperature of cold plunging that women should do for exactly how long. And this is the sauna protocol. It's like we have to try it out ourselves. There is literature to, pull from, but there's still so many things that are just unknown. I mean, even the misconceptions around hormone therapy are crazy, right? There was that women's health initiative 20 years
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
and a whole crop of doctors are now telling their patients that hormone therapy will cause cancer. My
Yeah.
mom, who lives in a small town in Ohio, meanwhile, by the way, I own a clinic that she could just be going to. I don't know why she's going to this Western doctor. Is telling her you can't do hormone therapy because you'll get cancer. No,
Yeah.
this has all been disproven. They did the study wrong. It was started too
Completely.
late. It was the wrong
Yeah.
kind. And
Right.
now we see that hormone therapy, and it makes sense, right? So if your hormones are just going to completely downregulate at a specific time in your life, of course that supplementing would probably be beneficial to health span and lifespan. So we now see that reductions in cancer and heart disease,
Yeah,
all of
which is
these
a good
things,
thing.
bone health, energy, so many different reasons. But yeah, I don't know the exact reason that
No, we don't.
women
We don't know.
live longer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe because the women are getting on men's nerves and they make them tired.
Well,
That
you know
was
what?
just
I think there was some research actually that said men that are married live longer, women that are married don't. Did you see this one?
no.
I don't
I don't
agree
want
with
to
it.
say it.
I don't agree with it because I think that women that are married in good relationships will also live longer.
I
But
agree on that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But it was just like for the joke of it. I'm gonna ask you 5 questions, and
Okay.
you have like a minute to answer them as fast as possible, like blunt and straightforward from your mind. What is what's the single most important lifestyle change for enhancing your brain health?
Going to bed early and exercising.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. Optimizing brain health, is it the key for achieving peak physical performance?
Absolutely. Our brain is our most important real estate, most important organ. It is the most energy consumptive organ. So, although it weighs about 2 pounds in weight, it consumes about 30% of our calories. So,
Mhm.
anything that you do positive for the brain is also going to benefit the body. But the brain is going to determine how successful you are, the quality of your relationships, the quality of your life. So, if you put the brain first and doing things that benefit the brain, they will also benefit the body. High quality sleep required. Healthy nutrition absolutely required. Vigorous exercise and strength training absolutely required for the brain. All of these things benefit the brain and therefore will benefit the body.
That's awesome. Yeah, on point. Absolutely great. What is the most impactful biohacking tool you've discovered so far? Still talking about brain and optimization at large.
Outside of all the basics that we talked about, those will move the needle the most. I really love plasmapheresis and therapies like EBU because, as I mentioned, we are experiencing an incredibly high toxic burden. We know that there's a direct correlation between heavy metal exposure
Hmm.
and neurodegenerative diseases and environmental toxins in general. So I think that putting an emphasis on really being able to detox the body through something like plasmapheresis, plasma exchange, or EBU is incredibly beneficial.
Can you explain what is Ibu for our
Yeah,
public? Many
EBU
people
is
don't know. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So their ozone therapy, I mean, has actually been used in medicine for over 100 years, but not widely. So ozone is incredible for, it has antiviral properties, antibacterial properties. It's a great way to help increase detoxification in the body. So I think Gwyneth Paltrow went like viral for saying she
Hmm.
does rectal
True.
ozone. You guys may
Yeah.
have seen that. So
Yeah.
literally ozone therapy at home into the anus. That can be a systemic benefit, but you can also do it IV. I'm not really interested in like doing sorts of backdoor type of
Yeah.
therapies as much. So I would rather do an IV. So then you're getting IV. You essentially draw your blood, you ozonate it, and then you put the blood back in. And that ozone goes throughout your circulatory system and helps your body detox, fight viruses, kill bacteria, and more. So EBU is like ultra high dose. So it looks like a dialysis machine. So you have one line kind of going into one side and another line coming out, and it's filtering almost all the blood in your body, filters it, ozonates it, and then you get all those anti-inflammatory benefits, antiviral, antibacterial benefits, and it can be really helpful. I also have ozone therapy device like a Simply O3 at home. So
Hmm.
let's say
Works
I
very
start
well.
to feel a little bit sick. I can do at home ozone therapy. I can do ozone water swished around my
Yeah.
mouth, really good for your oral microbiome. And you can even do. It's also good for the gut microbiome too. In some cases.
Ozone or hydrogen? Which one do you prefer?
I like them both for different reasons. I would opt for ozone if you had really imbalanced gut health. And I love hydrogen too. I mean, lots of clinical data on, antioxidant
Hmm. Hmm.
properties. I do hydrogen in the morning. I prefer the tablets over the hydrogen
Oh,
water makers for a
yeah.
few reasons. Number one, I have a concern about the rusting and heavy metal
Mm.
because you have to keep it wet constantly.
Right. Yeah.
You have to keep the node wet.
True.
Yeah, so I have concerns around mold and I have concerns around rusting. So I prefer the tablets. And I also, just love to drop a tablet in and then drink the water pretty quickly
Yeah.
after. So
That's what I do
love
too.
hydrogen for antioxidant
Yeah.
benefits. And then the ozone therapy, I would really focus on that more if I, you know, needed a detox or had something like Lyme or, sometimes even autoimmune conditions, things of that nature.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. You know what? I know someone that does direct injection of ozone in the veins.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But, well, do they mix it with blood or they're just injecting
No,
ozone?
they just injecting ozone. Yeah.
Hmm. So you can
Yeah.
do ozone injections into joints and like tissue. It actually has a similar effect to cortisone. So it can be anti inflammatory. It's a natural way. We know that cortisone actually degrades the bone over
Hmm.
time.
Right.
So interesting. I mean, I
Yeah.
suppose you
I was
could just
surprised
inject
too.
it
Yeah.
into the
Yeah.
vein,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
like the idea of transporting it with blood. You know what I
Me
mean?
too. Yeah.
Because you also might
I,
not want to get like an air embolism. I would be a little bit concerned about that.
That's what she was telling me, and that she takes the precaution on that and make sure that it doesn't happen for sure. Next question: do you believe that true brain optimization is achievable without cutting edge technology? Can you do
Yeah.
that or not? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know that, via neuroplasticity that we
Uh,
can change the way that we think, the way that our brain
mhm.
operates, really at any given time. So we have to change. I think of the brain as the software, which is how we think in the program. And then I have the hardware, right? So that's what are you eating? How are you breathing? What contaminants are you allowing in your brain? Is your gut health good? Because your gut and your brain directly communicate. So you can make massive changes to brain health, cognition, focus, all with at home practices. There's a couple
Lovely.
peptides that I really like. I think cerebral lysine is really interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
Potentially,
They
you of
were
course,
that was coming from Russia at the beginning, I
yeah.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still really hard to get. So,
Yeah.
and you of course want to do things like peptides under like a doctor's supervision, but that's an interesting one. And there's I think going to be a lot more therapies. I like photobiomodulation intranasal
Yes. Yeah.
for brain health. So we know that the brain has the highest concentration of mitochondria. So you can actually do intranasal red light therapy to help with the mitochondria in the brain. Brain is
Yeah.
mostly fat and water. It's very soft. It's like the consistency of soft butter. So you want to protect it. You don't want to be playing, contact sports and injuring the brain.
Yeah.
Hyperbaric oxygen therapy is incredible for brain health, really improves the blood flow. On SPECT imaging, which is what Dr. Daniel Lehman does, he sees massive benefits for anyone with a past concussion, TBI. Hyperbaric, like 40 sessions of hyperbaric is one of his go-tos. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love doing that for brain health. And then, your diet too, eating these healthy fats because our brain loves those, and high quality proteins, which break down and actually are the building blocks for our neurotransmitters.
Yeah. Beautiful. It brings me to the last question about nutrition. Um, how crucial is nutrition compared to advanced therapy for like talking about cognitive functions? Like, do you think that it's mainly nutrition based or more technological based if you want to optimize them? Which one you would go to?
I mean, without a doubt, nutrition, you have to
Hmm.
start there. Everything
Yeah.
else is like putting a band-aid on it, right? Like
Correct.
if you could use, some sort of brain tech and that'll put a band-aid on it, but you want to solve the problem from the root. So, like I mentioned, the brain is using about 30% of our energy, our
Energy.
food. So every piece of food I put in my mouth, I'm thinking, is this going to give me a better or a worse brain? Do I want a brain made out of Doritos, or do I want a brain made out of wild caught salmon and, organic blueberries? Like, of course, if you have a brain out of Doritos and Twinkies and Ho-Hos and all this crazy non-food like stuff, of course it's going to operate so poorly. I mean,
True.
I'm so passionate about this subject because you just can't think that you can treat your body like a trash can and then perform optimally. This just won't happen. So I think nutrition and exercise, need to be the base, and then you can explore all of these incredible therapies. I mean, we're getting therapies coming to market with, frequency and electromagnetic stimulation that can
Very
change
interesting.
the
Yeah.
brain waves. I have a helmet, a neuronic, I think it's
Oh,
called,
yeah. Yes. Yes. Beautiful. I was part of their beta testing. Yeah.
yeah, so, that can help to shift your brain waves
Completely.
to either increase energy or
Yeah.
increase relaxation. That stuff is all great, but you really always want to focus on the core and solving the problem or fixing the problem to the best of your ability.
Yeah, beautiful answer and beautiful quote that you said. H- is your diet mainly vegetarian or not at all? You eat everything. Are you following any diets
Yeah,
outside
I
of
mean, I
like whole food? I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not following any restrictive,
Hmm.
I've tried everything, I was
Okay.
raw vegan, I was vegan back in the day, I was carnivore, I've been all the things, paleo. Now I really just adhere mostly to, I would say, a Mediterranean type diet, lots
Okay.
of fatty fish. I mean, I think protein is so important, and it just becomes a lot more difficult to get all the nutrients if you're living a
So
vegan lifestyle.
yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong with it as long as you're on top of your labs, but I love incorporating, sardines, wild salmons. I
Olive
will,
oil. Okay.
once or so a week, I'll have a grass fed, grass finished, like ribeye steak. That for me works. But again, we're all so unique that we
Hmm.
have to maintain our labs. And I think, protein, I'm excited that for women, it's becoming a bigger topic because women used to be told like, oh, eat a salad and have a small meal and stay, really, really small is the idea. But no, like you have to have protein to not have those cravings. Protein is so satiating, and you need to be building muscle as often as much as you can when you're young, and
Yeah.
then even, doubling up on that as you get older,
When you get
because
older.
sarcopenia starts to set in, and bone loss, and it's really important to just build muscle and bone as early as you can, and it's never too late to start for women, but we do have to optimize our protein intake. So yeah, whole foods. I also try to, I used to have a very strict diet. I would eat almost the exact same thing every morning and every night,
Oh,
but the problem with that, it's great for ease and adherence, but our gut microbiomes want diversity. So
correct.
now I primarily focus on the quality of the food. So I get all of my food delivered from regenerative local farms. So the nutrient quality is so much higher in regenerative soil than,
Hmm.
conventional monocropping. And each week it's different. So whatever's in season is what I'm making, because that's what they deliver.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
I'm really eating, seasonally, and really just looking for blood sugar, management too. So we minimize carbohydrate intake. I will increase carbohydrate intake at certain times during my cycle, but we of course always, eat the foods in the right order. So the proteins, healthy fat, salad first, then followed by I call them smart carbs, like whole carbs, like a sweet potato or a yam. Vegetables are carbs. So yeah, I have all what I'm eating on my
So,
protocol. So I have all my
so
labs public,
yeah,
and I have all my dietary preferences,
everything.
my
Yeah.
workouts, all the things. You can go to protocol.kaylabarnes.com and
Yeah.
find all of that. And it's changing, because you might get a new report, need to tweak a few things. And I really try to think about nutrition as well. I love like this app Chronometer, because you can also do the mineral. So you have the macronutrients, right? Like proteins, fat, carbs, but then you want to look at the micronutrients. Are you getting all the micronutrients that you need?
That
So,
you need.
I put in things like pomegranate or, broccoli sprouts, because we know that these have a functional benefit. Like they can function like supplements if you are eating them on a consistent enough basis. And then it always changes based on my labs. Like my last Nutri-Eval test showed my vitamin C was a little low. So first I did an IV therapy to get my vitamin C up. And
Boost
now
it.
I'm eating
Yeah.
more, citrus fruits to maintain those levels.
Interesting. How many supplements you take a day?
About 30.
30? So that's not that much.
No, I mean, I try to
No,
really get a lot of it from food. I mean, a lot of people would think 30 is a ton, but,
no, no, no. Like it's not 100 and something. But what is funny is like I hear you on the food delivery and the cycle of season and everything. This is one of the part that you don't control.
yeah, it is true. It is true. Eventually, I want to have a biological home. So, we're
Ah,
living in
so
LA now. So
yeah,
I want to buy a
yeah,
house middle of nowhere, have a biological home builder, build it from the ground up. There'll be no Wi-Fi. It'll be all hardwired in,
beautiful.
the
Yeah.
right paints, everything. Like homes now aren't built to breathe. A
Hmm.
home that's breathable, all non-toxic, everything. But yeah, I mean, we don't control that part now, but we do the best we can. The other thing that I love is that this delivery service doesn't use plastic. So like, I shop at the highest end grocery store. I won't name a name, but there's one here in LA that everyone's obsessed with, including me. But I'm really going out of my way to try to limit the
It's
microplastics.
true. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
getting the fish and the meat from a
And
butcher
plus,
wrapped in paper
yeah,
versus, getting food that's been wrapped in 15 different types of plastic, exposed to
correct.
plastic during processing.
Yeah,
All of those little things are so incredibly important.
so
And
important.
and yeah, I love food is beautiful. Like we need to bring
Yeah,
back the reverence for food. Like we're
yeah.
so blessed if you're able to have high quality food to eat that.
And this is the biggest difference between you and Brian Johnson.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, he's doing a lot of the powders. I mean,
yeah,
that's
exactly. It doesn't chew much, but yeah, and you are mainly axed on food, which is I support that. I love it. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, Kayla, where people can find you? Of course, on your website.
Yep. My
Yeah.
website is kaylabarnes.com, KaylaBarnes.com. My Instagram is at Kayla Barnes. My YouTube, which I think I'm the only female longevity creator that's making long form YouTube content. So we have
Yeah.
my full morning routine, my evening routine, my oral. I take, my videographer to the dentist with me, my biological dentist. So you can see all of that. You can find that on my website, or it's also under female longevity. So yeah, I would love to connect with you. I want to mention this female longevity optimization group that I'm super excited about. So
Okay.
my audience is about 95% women, but you can't really be vulnerable in the Instagram comments, right? So I created this very, I believe to be low cost. It's just about $19 a month. And you get access to all of my nutritional protocols, all the changes in my protocols at any time,
Nice.
female specific research on a daily and weekly basis. Ask me anything. I record those once a month. You also get community. It's so fun to watch women who are all, biohacking in their own
Right.
little spots of
Yeah.
the world come together and say, hey, I had this with my hormones. What did you do? What did you do, Kayla? But also, what did the hundreds of other women in the group do? And
Correct.
it's really, really beautiful and fun to watch. So
Yeah. You should,
that's on my website.
and you should transpose that if you want in Biohackers magazine, because we have so many women reading the
Oh,
magazine, and it could be like you could be a contributor and just like transpose whatever you want on the women health and women biohacking. I would be honored
I
if you
would
want
love
to do
that.
that. Yeah,
Let's figure out how to make that
cool.
happen. That would be so exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's so fun. I can keep everyone up to date with like everything that's coming out because I'm
That's
really
it.
on top
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, I know you're the best for that. Thank you, Kayla, for
Thank
being my
you.
guest here. It was a pleasure having this interview with you. And I'll follow up with that proposal, and we're going to tell you exactly how the publication and everything goes after that. Okay.
Perfect. Well,
Thank you so
thanks for
much,
having
Kayla.
me. I'm glad 5 years later we got this done.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Kayla.